Retirement used to be a one-way door. You worked, you stopped, and that was that. But right now, according to AARP, 7% of American retirees have gone back to work in just the past 6 months. And researchers who track this over longer periods find that roughly 1 in 3 retirees eventually returns to work in some form. Think about that. A third of the people who threw a retirement party, gave away their office plants, and said goodbye, they came back. This isn't a quirky lifestyle trend, it's an economic signal, and today we're going to follow the money behind it. Unretirement exists because American retirement was built on a machine that no longer runs the way it was designed to. For most of the 20th century, retirement rested on 3 legs: Social Security from the government, a pension from your employer, and your own savings. The pension was the quiet workhorse. Your company promised you a check every month for life, and the company carried the investment risk. Then, starting in the 1980s, corporate America swapped pensions for the 401k, a tax-advantaged savings account where you put in your own money, usually with some employer matching, and you carry all the risk. If the market drops, that's your problem. If you live to 95, that's your problem too. Private pensions mostly disappeared outside of government jobs. That shift worked fine for high earners who saved aggressively for 40 years. For everyone else, it left a gap. And Social Security was never designed to fill that gap. It replaces roughly 40% of the average worker's pre-retirement income. The average retired worker's benefit today is just over $2,000 a month. So when inflation spiked after 2020, groceries, insurance, rent, property taxes, millions of retirees ran the numbers and discovered the math didn't work anymore. Unretirement isn't a movement, it's a patch, a workaround for a retirement system that quietly transferred risk from institutions to individuals and is now collecting on it. Let's talk about the gap that pushes people back to work, because the numbers explain almost everything. According to the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, the median American household headed by someone between 55 and 64 has about $185,000 in retirement savings. Not the average. The median, meaning half of households, have less. The average is over $500,000, but that number is dragged upward by a small group of very wealthy savers. The median tells you what a typical family actually has. Now, $185,000 sounds substantial, but a common rule of thumb in retirement planning is to withdraw about 4% a year so the money lasts. 4% of $185,000 is $7,400 a year, about $600 a month. Add the average Social Security check of a little over $2,000 a month, and the typical retiree is living on roughly $31,000 or $32,000 a year. Before taxes, before a roof replacement, before a dental crown, which Medicare, the federal health insurance program for people 65 and up, generally doesn't cover. And that's the middle of the distribution. Among households aged 65 to 74, roughly 1 in 4 has no retirement savings at all. For them, Social Security isn't a foundation, it's the whole house, and it shows in the anxiety data. U.S. Bank's 2025 Wealth Report found that nearly 2/3 of Americans worry they'll eventually have to go back to work after retiring. The fear arrives before the paycheck does. Meanwhile, costs kept climbing. Social Security benefits rose 2.8% in 2026, about $56 a month for a typical retiree. Many seniors report that barely covered the increase in their grocery and utility bills, let alone health care, where premiums and out-of-pocket costs routinely outpace general inflation. So when AARP asked unretirees why they went back, 48% said it: money or fear about the economy. Another 28% admitted they simply retired too early. Only about 14% said they mainly missed the activity and the people. The romantic story about retirees returning for purpose and connection is real for some. But for most, the driver is a spreadsheet. Now here's where it gets interesting, because unretirement isn't just a personal decision, it's a labor market with buyers and sellers, and the buyers have noticed. Start with the sheer scale. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projected that about 30% of Americans aged 65 to 74 would be in the labor force by 2026. up from 17.5% in 1996. For people 75 and older, participation has more than doubled over that period, and Pew Research has found that workers 75 and up are the fastest growing age group in the American workforce. Roughly 4 in 10 older households now receive some income from work. Employers, for their part, have discovered that unretirees are a bargain in specific ways. They tend to show up, they need little training, and they often don't need benefits. A 67-year-old on Medicare may not take the company health plan. A retiree collecting a pension or drawing from savings may accept part-time hours with no retirement match. Industries with chronic labor shortages, healthcare, retail, education, hospitality, transportation actively recruit them. There's a reason the greeter, the school bus driver, and the pharmacy tech are increasingly gray-haired. But the flow of money is lopsided. Most unretirees don't walk back into their old salary. Many return part-time in lower-paid service roles or as consultants and gig workers without benefits. The gig economy in particular has become a landing zone for retirees. Driving, delivery, tutoring, seasonal tax preparation, precisely because it asks no questions about age and offers no commitments in return. Flexible hours, yes. Sick days, health coverage. A retirement match, no. The economist Teresa Ghilarducci has pointed out that the median income of retired Americans is under $30,000 a year, and that work is often the only realistic lever they can pull to raise it. And the government is a silent partner in every one of these paychecks. Unretirees keep paying payroll taxes into Social Security and Medicare, even while drawing benefits from those same programs. They pay income taxes on their wages. In a country worried about the finances of its retirement programs, several million retirees going back to work is quietly very good news for the Treasury. Nobody planned it that way, but that's where the money flows. So who actually bears the cost of a system where a third of retirees end up back at work? Follow the order of payment. First, the retiree pays, sometimes in ways they don't expect. If you claim Social Security before your full retirement age, which is 67 for anyone born in 1960 or later, and then go back to work, you hit something called the earnings test. In 2026, if you're under full retirement age all year, you can earn up to $24,480. Above that, Social Security withholds $1 in benefits for every $2 you earn. In the year you reach full retirement age, the limit jumps to $65,160, and the withholding drops to $1 for every 3. Run the numbers on a real case. Say you're 64, collecting $800 a month in benefits, and you take a job paying about $33,000 a year. You're roughly $9,000 over the limit, so Social Security withholds around $4,500 of your benefits, nearly half your checks for the year. Now that money isn't gone forever. Your benefit gets recalculated upward once you hit full retirement age. But try telling that to someone whose monthly check just shrank while their rent didn't. And it can take a decade or more of those slightly larger checks to get the withheld money back. Second, working retirees can pay more in taxes. Wages can push more of your Social Security benefit into taxable territory. Up to 85% of the benefit can be taxed, depending on your total income. A part-time job that looks like a clean $20,000 can net considerably less once benefits withholding and taxes do their work. Third, spouses and families pay. When a retiree goes back to work out of necessity, that's often a household decision. A spouse delaying their own retirement, adult children stepping in with money, or the reverse, a retiree working to help support adult children and grandchildren. And finally, there's who doesn't pay. Employers get experienced labor at part-time prices, often without benefits. The system gets extra tax revenue. The people absorbing the cost of America's retirement gap are overwhelmingly the retirees themselves. The visible story is a retiree earning a paycheck again. The hidden costs sit underneath. Start with the job search itself, because for many retirees, wanting to work and finding work are two different things. Researchers at Boston College's Center for Retirement Research track what they call the unretirement rate, the share of retirees who are working again a year later. During the red-hot labor market of 2022, it topped 7% for people in their late 50s and early 60s. Recently, it's fallen to around 2%. Costs are still rising. The difference is that the jobs got harder to get. Then there's age discrimination, which is illegal under federal law and also, by most accounts, routine. In AARP surveys, about two-thirds of workers over 50 say they've seen or experienced age discrimination at work. Older job seekers are more likely to end up in long-term unemployment, stuck searching for more than 6 months. And a new front has opened, lawsuits alleging that AI-powered hiring software screens out older applicants before a human ever reads their resume. There's also the cost nobody invoices, the body. The 68-year-old stocking shelves or driving a delivery route is doing physical work at an age when the labor gets harder and injuries heal slower. Health problems are one of the most common reasons retirements happen earlier than planned in the first place, and they don't disappear when the retiree clocks back in. Don't forget the collision with caregiving either. The same people unretiring in their 60s are often the default caregivers for spouses in poor health or parents in their late 80s. Every shift worked is a shift someone else has to cover at home or pay for. For many families, grandma's part-time paycheck quietly funds grandpa's part-time aid. And there's a quieter financial trap. Some unretirees needing income now claimed Social Security early at a permanently reduced rate, a decision that can't be fully undone after the first year, and are now working to compensate for a smaller check they'll receive for the rest of their lives. The cheapest fix at 62 becomes the most expensive one at 80. Step back, and the logic of all this becomes clear. America made a choice, mostly in the 1980s and 90s, to make retirement a do-it-yourself project. Pensions were expensive and unpredictable for companies, so companies stopped offering them. Individual accounts were cheaper, portable, and shifted the risk to workers. Congress blessed the arrangement with tax breaks. That system genuinely works for people with steady careers, high incomes, and the discipline or luck to save for 4 decades. It works much less well for people with gaps in employment, low wages, health problems, or caregiving years, which describes an enormous share of the country. Unretirement is the release valve. When the do-it-yourself system comes up short, the fallback isn't a stronger safety net, it's more work. And demographics are about to raise the stakes. The Census Bureau projects that by 2034, Americans 65 and older will outnumber children under 18 for the first time in the nation's history. That means more people trying to stretch savings across retirements that can last 25 or 30 years, and a labor market that increasingly wants and needs their hours. Other wealthy countries have made different trade-offs: higher taxes, more generous public pensions, less individual risk. The American model keeps taxes lower and bets on personal savings and continued work. Neither approach is free. This country just chose to collect the bill later, one part-time shift at a time. So what is unretirement economically? It's honest work, and for many people, it genuinely helps. Extra income, structure, connection, a stronger Social Security record. Surveys even find plenty of unretirees who say they're happier working than they ever were before. But zoom out, and it's also a verdict on the system that made it necessary. When nearly half of returning retirees say they came back for money, unretirement stops looking like a lifestyle and starts looking like a symptom. The typical household reaches its mid-60s with savings that generate a few $100s a month, a Social Security check of about $2,000, and rising costs on every side. The gap gets filled the old-fashioned way, with labor. The winners are employers who get skilled, reliable workers at a discount and a retirement system that collects extra payroll taxes from its own beneficiaries. The people covering the difference are the workers themselves, in hours, in health, and in the retirement they thought they'd already earned. In America, retirement was never really a promise. It was always a price, and more people are still paying it. If this breakdown helped you see the economics of unretirement more clearly, a like and a subscribe tell us to keep making episodes like this one. Thanks for watching.